Project Management. Welcome to this webinar. The aims of this webinar are to define project management in the context of business and industry, to consolidate your understanding of the project management process, and to appraise the interconnection between leadership skills and project management. Problems arise in every organisation. For example, what products or systems are developed? Should capacity be expanded? Or should a new IT system be purchased? These are just a few of an endless number of continuing problems about which management must concern itself if an organisation is to survive. These problems and their alternative solutions establish some elements of change around which the organisation must adapt, and projects are generally established to carry out these changes. And someone is always responsible for each project's successful completion. Every project is unique in terms of the problems that arise, priorities and resources assigned to it, the environment in which it operates, and the project manager's attitude and style, which is used to guide and control project activities. Therefore, the organisational structure for the project must be designed to fit within that project's operative constraints. The structure implemented may not be the same structure used throughout the life cycle of the project due to changes in priorities, available resources, project personnel, and laws and other such contingencies. However, regardless of the project management structure which is chosen, senior management must realise that there needs to be a dynamic state of equilibrium between the limited personnel and financial resources and the objectives of the project. And this dynamic state of equilibrium will be necessary if the project management is to be successful for their particular organisation. Before touching on the major tools and techniques of project management, let's get to the bottom of what a project actually is and what project management truly is. A project is a single transient endeavour adopted to achieve particular objectives. It's a planned undertaking of related activities to reach a goal or goals that has a beginning and an end. Now, nearly every activity within an organisation could be labelled as a project because it possesses not only unique characteristics but also carries varying levels of importance to that organisation. A project might be intended to cover gaps in what an organisation does, or it might be intended to address some failing in an organisation's systems or processes. It might even be about seeking new opportunities. The planned objectives are often defined in terms of outputs, such as a new headquarters, or in terms of outcomes, such as staff being relocated from multiple locations to the new headquarters. The planned objectives might be about the benefits, such as reduced travel and facilities management costs. Or the planned objectives may be about strategy, such as doubling the organisation's share price in 3 years. It's certainly not about business as usual. All projects solve some type of problem, but they may also be established simply to determine and define feasible alternative solutions to those problems. Some projects are long and complex, while others are quite short and relatively simple. For example, designing a marketing campaign, or switching supplier, or developing a new staff training scheme. The project is usually deemed to be a success if it achieves the objectives according to the agreed criteria and it's delivered on time and within budget. So what then is project management? Well, at its most fundamental, project management is about people getting things done. It's the application of processes, methods, skills, knowledge and experience in order to direct the use of diverse resources towards the accomplishment of an exclusive, complex, one-off task within time, cost, and quality constraints. And as we'll hear throughout this, that time and cost and quality are the three things that must be at the forefront of every project. Now, each task requires a particular mix of these tools, and they need to be structured to fit the task environment and the life cycle of the project, from conception to completion. Now, although the basic concepts of project management are relatively simple, applying these concepts to an existing organisation is not. Since project management is concerned with managing discrete packages of work to achieve specific objectives, the way the work is managed depends upon a wide variety of factors. The scale, significance and complexity of the work are obvious factors. For example, relocating a small office and organising the Olympics share many basic principles, but they offer very different managerial challenges. So the skills depend on the resources available at the time. The greater the amount of adjustments an organisation must make to fulfil project objectives, the greater the chance exists for project failure. The form of project management will be unique for every endeavour, and they will most likely change throughout the project. A key factor that distinguishes project management from just management is that it has a final deliverable and a finite time span, unlike management, which, as we know, is an ongoing process. So because of this, a project professional needs a wide range of skills, not only technical skills, but also people management skills and good business awareness. More about this aspect later. As stated previously, projects are separate from business as usual activities, and that requires people to come together temporarily to focus on specific project objectives. And as a result, effective teamwork is central to successful projects. So project management is essentially aimed at producing an end product that will affect some change for the benefit of the organisation that instigated it. In its simplest form, it is the initiation, planning and control of a range of tasks that are required to deliver this end product. In general, projects that require formal management are those that produce something new or are altered, tangible or intangible, and they have a finite time span, a definite start and end. And they're likely to be complex in terms of the work itself or of the groups involved. And of course, they will require the management of change and the management of risks. Let's see now what the ILM have to say about project management. This will serve as a reasonable overview before what follows.
I have just got an email asking me to be involved in the project for the new IT system, and there are a lot of terms in it that I don't understand.
Projects do have a language all of their own, and it can be confusing when you hear them for the first time. Jargon terms such as project board, project manager, and business case all come from the structured process of setting up, monitoring, and controlling a project which could otherwise run away from you. Normally, the worries are about whether the outcomes are of a good enough quality or are achieved within a reasonable time frame and don't go over budget expectations. There is normally a trade-off between quality, time, and money. The business case is the starting place and extremely important. It focuses on the planned outcomes, the cost of the project, and the benefits it will deliver, and how the project itself fits within the overall strategy of the business. It has a financial emphasis, and as it's the justification for the project going ahead, it needs to be detailed and comprehensive. One of the first tasks of the project board, that's the group that oversees the whole project, is to agree whether the benefits justify the costs. The members of the board will include budget holders that will pay for this project. These project sponsors are more likely to be concerned about the detail of the financial side of the business case and any possible cost or time overruns. The project board is generally chaired by someone quite senior who takes overall responsibility. It includes the project manager who has responsibility for the day-to-day running of the project, mostly focusing on meeting deadlines and keeping within budget. The project manager also has to deal with anything which comes up unexpectedly. You can't always wait until the next board meeting for a decision. In addition to the project sponsors, other members of the board may include end users or customers to ensure the outcomes of the projects meet their needs, and suppliers who may need to deliver key elements or components to the appropriate quality standard. You also need to be aware of the structure and duration of a project. This is known as the project life cycle and has 4 key stages. The initiation phase is when what's to be achieved is decided, as well as who needs to be consulted and what resources may be needed. This is followed by comprehensive planning, which includes specifying the timeline, the detailed costs, the quality standard required, and so on. Once agreed plans are in place, the project is delivered, with operational responsibility taken by the project manager, who reports periodically to the board. Once it's all completed and the board agrees the outcomes adequately meet those planned, the project can be closed down. It is good practice to include a review phase where lessons learned can be recorded for future projects.
So, as you have seen and heard from the video, the core components of project management include defining the reason why a project is actually necessary, capturing the project requirements, including specifying the quality of the deliverables, estimating resources, and setting the timescales. It includes preparing a business case to actually justify the reason for the investment, and for securing corporate agreement and funding. It includes developing and implementing a management plan for the project too, and leading and motivating the project delivery team. It's about managing the risks, the issues, and the changes that arise during the project, and monitoring the progress against the plan. And as we've heard, it's about managing the project budget and maintaining communications with the stakeholders and those that organise the project in the first place. And it's about closing the project in a controlled fashion when it's appropriate to do so. Now, these components comprise the life cycle of a project and are typically subdivided into 4 key phases. That is, initiating the project, planning the project, executing the project, and closing the project. It's worth noting at this early stage, reminding ourselves really of this early stage, that time, cost, and quality are the building blocks of every project. And the size, complexity, and quality standard required is called the scope. Time scheduling is a collection of techniques used to develop and present schedules that show when work will be performed. Finance is about how the necessary funds are acquired and the costs are managed. And of course, quality is how fit it is for the purpose of the deliverables and how management processes are assured. Higher quality will, in general, cost more money. Now, if there's little that could go wrong with a project, it should actually cost less money. The more uncertain or risky a project is, may cost more. Now, this idea of time, finance and quality is known as a three-way constraint, where faster or better quality costs more. If you want better quality at the same price, it generally takes longer. And if you want to make cost savings, then we're going to have to require more time or lower the quality. The techniques listed in the 4 key phases of project management actually enable a project team to link the project goals and objectives to stakeholder needs. They can focus on customer needs. They can build high-performance project teams. They can work across functional boundaries. And they can develop work breakdown structures. They can estimate the project costs and schedules. And they can meet time constraints, calculate the risks, and establish a dependable project control and monitoring system. Let's look a little bit more closely at each of the key phases, starting with initiating the project. Now, the techniques related to the project initiation phase include the establishment of the project initiation plan. If you remember from the video, this in general defines the purpose and scale of the project and the activities and resources required to organise the team while working to define the goals and scope of the project. It's also known as the business case, which is a written justification for the project. It's an executive summary, which includes the planned outcomes, the key financial benefits, project cost, and how it fits within the organisation in a general way. And in this phase 2, we have to establish the management procedures. This is concerned with developing the team communication and reporting procedures, job assignments and roles, project change procedure, and how project funding and billing will be handled. And in this phase, we need to establish the initiation team. This all involves organising team members to assist in carrying out the project initiation activities. And of course, we have to establish the project management environment and workbook. And this focuses on the collection and organisation of the tools that will be used while managing the project. The next phase is planning the project. And here, we need to describe the project scope, the alternatives and feasibility. This is the detailed content and complexity of the project. And there are some relevant questions that should be answered, including what problem or opportunity does the project address? What results are to be achieved? What actually needs to be done? And how will success be measured? And how will we know when it's finished? And in this planning phase, we need to divide the project into tasks. This is also known as the work breakdown structure. And this step is done to ensure an easy progression between tasks. We need to estimate the resources and create a resource plan. And this helps to gather and arrange resources in the most effective manner so that they're available at the right time in the right place or with the right person so that the project doesn't get delayed. We need to, of course, develop a preliminary schedule. And in this instance, time estimates are assigned to each activity in the work breakdown structure. A detailed timeline of what will be done by when and by whom, thus allowing the creation of the target start and end dates for the project. And in this planning phase, we also need to develop a communication plan. The idea here is to outline communication procedures between management, team members and the customer. How often we communicate how the project is going, when, where, how. We need to determine the project standards and procedures. So we need to specify what the quality standard will be. We need to clarify the features of the various deliverables, how they're going to be produced and tested by the project team. We need to identify and assess the risks. We have to identify the potential sources of risk and the consequences of those risks. As we shall hear, we'll need to have a plan in place, a risk assessment plan if you like, so that we can take action to nullify any risk to the project. We need to create a preliminary budget. The budget should summarise the planned expenses and the revenues related to the project. And we need to develop a statement of work. This is a document that will give us a list of the work that has to be done and the expected outcome. And we have to set a baseline project plan. And this should provide an estimate of the project's tasks and resource requirements. The techniques related to the project execution phase include executing the baseline project plan. Now, this is the job of the project manager, who has to initiate the execution of project activities. He or she has to acquire and assign resources, orient and train new team members, and keep the project on schedule, and also assure the quality of the project deliverables. The project manager has to monitor the project process against the baseline project plan. Using Gantt and PERT charts and critical path method, more about these later, can assist the project manager in monitoring the progress. The project manager has to manage changes to the basic project plan, tracking time, money and quality, whilst being ever ready to respond to change. The project manager also has to maintain the project workbook. Keeping and maintaining complete records of all the project events is absolutely necessary. The project workbook is the primary source of information for producing all the project reports. And of course, we have to communicate the project status. This means that the entire project plan should be shared with the entire project team, and any revisions to the plan should be communicated to all interested parties so that everyone understands how the plan is evolving. We also need to close the project. In this stage, it's important to notify all the interested parties of the completion of the project. Also, all the project documentation and records should be finalised so that a final review can be conducted. The project team can now be disbanded. It's good practice to conduct post-project reviews to determine the strengths and weaknesses of project deliverables, processes that we use to create them, and the project management process itself. And we need to make sure that we met all the contractual terms of the project. Now, at this point, it's probably going to be worth investigating a little more thoroughly the people who actually deliver the process. Who, if you like, is in the team. Now, complex projects are delivered by a large number of people in different roles. Some of them look after quality, some monitor costs, and others have quite specific roles. For example, budget holders in the form of a project sponsor, who oversees the work of the project manager, often as part of a project board, who agree both the go-ahead and the closure of the project, and also end users, who will utilise the outcomes. But the main role is that of the project manager. And at this stage, we're going to have a little look at what a project manager actually does and the skills that project manager will need. The project manager has the main responsibility for keeping to the planned and agreed schedule and within cost and time limits. The project manager manages and leads the team, deals with delays and conflicts, and handles day-to-day delivery issues. They're responsible for managing work through the application of knowledge, skills, tools and techniques to meet project requirements. This characterization of project management succinctly communicates the idea that there is a demand on project managers to possess varied competencies, one of which is skills. Yes, they must be knowledgeable. Yes, they must have the right tools. But critically, they must know how to apply the right techniques to projects. Knowing project management theory is all well and good, but without the skills to apply what's known, it's useless. Similarly, having the right tools and techniques, but without the skills to put them to good use, is meaningless. So in order to become proficient project managers, people need to hone their project management skills, where theory, experience, and knowledge of proper application come together as one. But what is it that makes someone a great project manager? Certainly, this would be a blend of experience and skills. However, in this webinar, I want to explore in a little more detail the project management skills that can be developed in order to successfully lead teams and projects effectively. In my experience, project managers often have a bad reputation. Mention that you're a project manager, and all too often people share their unenlightened thoughts on what project managers do. Oh, you're one of those who boss everyone around on a project. Now, while that's true, anyone who has ever managed projects knows that there is much more to project management than being a tin pot dictator who barks out orders to the team and then returns to their desk for a cup of tea and a biscuit. In fact, being good at telling others what to do or managing are not high on the list of skills necessary to be an effective project manager. Leading others, however, now that's a different story, and one which is core to the success of any project manager, and we'll get to that shortly. The literature available generally identifies 7 areas that are important to master to be an effective project manager. And these are leadership, communication, time management, risk management, planning, negotiation, and subject matter expertise. Let's explore each of these project management skills a little further. Starting with leadership. One of the key project management skills is leadership, rather than just managing. That means providing a vision and a roadmap for success and serving and empowering your team to get there. Great leadership is an essential skill in order to become a good project manager. But undertaking a leadership role means leading and managing teams. The subject of leading and managing teams has already been discussed at length in another webinar in this series, and it may be worth revisiting it. So undertaking this leadership role also means setting the vision, motivating the team and serving them, coaching them, and inspiring others. Project managers lead both from a strategic and operational perspective. They communicate the vision and get team and organizational buy-in. They resolve conflict, set goals, evaluate performance, and make sure that team members have the tools, money, space, etc. that they need to get things done. But being a leader isn't just about creating a feel-good vibe for the team. Project managers have to enforce process and keep everyone on the team in line too. One of the most important skills to master is the ability to listen, to be clear and ensure you're understood. When information flows with the right messaging at the right time to the right person through the right channel, almost any hurdle can be overcome. Great communication is the crux of any relationship, and it's a dialogue, not a one-way garbled message. The effectiveness of a project manager's communication has an impact not only on the project team, but on the client and the stakeholders too. The more touch points that you have with a client, the more solid that relationship will be, and the more likely the project will be a success. Good communication keeps everyone realigned, and if it's being done frequently enough, then you'll ensure that you're successful, as you'll never deviate very far from where the project needs to be. Communication isn't effective unless the person being communicated with understands what is being told to them. Frequent and effective communication will ensure that everyone is on the same wavelength, and it helps to avoid uncomfortable conversations in the future. From a client's perspective, communication of project details in writing and a periodic status report is absolutely essential, as it helps to reinforce the message and build rapport with clients. It's also been found that status meetings and reports with the project team are invaluable, as it helps keep track of next steps, action the items, the project risks, and the budgets and the process. However, effective communication doesn't just happen. It starts by putting in the time and effort required to get to know the team well and devising an appropriate communication plan that connects with the different personality types. This often means having to adapt a communication strategy from project to project for the simple reason that there may be different team members for each project, and a particular communication system or structure may not always work for everyone. Another skill to master is planning. To the extent the project manager is always 10 steps ahead and always knows what's next. That means not only for success, but for the disasters too. A skilled project manager has always got a plan up their sleeve. Now, project scheduling is a core project management skill. The ability to organise tasks in the right order to hit the right outcome at the right time is a major part of the job as a project manager. It is absolutely critical that project managers give scheduling the most serious attention it deserves. And along with it, they must monitor the project as it moves forward and make tweaks to ensure that everything stays on track. Proper planning means everything from meta to micro. Obviously, there's the large-scale planning we need to get right to create meeting plans and statements of work, provide estimates and timelines, as well as resource plans and briefs. We also have to look at the more mundane, the day-to-day plans, who to talk to first, and how to make time to keep the status documents up to date. In essence, planning is finding ways to do what needs to be done as efficiently as possible. No matter how good a person's ability to execute, without being able to properly plan a project, the project will not succeed. A huge part of a project manager's job is determining and communicating how other people will spend their time. But it's equally important to be aware of how the project manager manages their own time. In general, it's about nailing the difference between urgent and important. And here I'm reminded of a point made by Eisenhower, who said, "What's important is seldom urgent, and what's urgent is seldom important." The problem is that important tasks usually get trumped by urgent tasks. If time is limited, it's vital to make sure that time is set aside for the important tasks. And knowing when to say no is a critical project management skill. I'm sure that we're all aware that meetings are some of the biggest thieves of time. So we need to save that valuable time by engaging critical thinking skills that help weigh up what's important and what's not, and so develop the ability to know when not to have a meeting, or to simply pull the plug on a meeting that is in danger of overrunning. This is a good, valuable aspect of time management and a critical skill. A good strategy that works really well in managing meeting time is always to have an agenda and stick to it. Successful project managers also respect their colleagues' time. So being able to read the body language of people in the room is also critical to ensure that things stay on course. Look for opportunities to delegate responsibilities, multitask, or rearrange the day-to-day schedule as necessary. Another very important skill to master is the ability to identify risks well before they become issues. You need to formulate effective mitigation plans so that the risk of them ever becoming issues is nullified. Project managers aren't always an easy target when projects don't go to plan. Regardless of the circumstances, everyone wonders whether the project manager could have foreseen and prevented the risk before it became an issue. Project sponsors hate surprises, and good risk management is one way of avoiding them, especially the nasty ones. Risks are often not urgent, which means that many project managers fail to consider the risks as seriously as they should, because it's important to control risk and actively mitigate against it as far as is possible. Effective risk management does come from experience. It's knowing what could go wrong and not being afraid to ask other members of the project team for their opinions. The risk has first to be identified, and the earlier this is done, the better the chances of avoiding the risk occurrence. But risk identification must be followed by a risk plan for what to do about them. This involves assigning a probability, a cost, an owner, and using mitigation strategies that are suitable for the risk. These action plans need to be incorporated into the master plan and tracked as well. Effectively managing risk has massive benefits, none the least of which is that less time will be spent on juggling hot potatoes and unnecessarily firefighting unwelcome surprises. Another key project management skill is negotiation. That is the ability to find the middle ground, working out compromises so that all parties are satisfied and disparate interests are aligned. Project management, in many ways, is a bit like politics. It often brings together a disparate group of people, often with competing interests. And the project manager's job is to get these different interests on the same page so that project goals are accomplished. A good project manager must be an excellent negotiator, because they find themselves negotiating with just about everyone every day, negotiating the use of resources, budgets, schedules, scope creep, and a variety of other compromises that are unavoidable. Oh, you might be wondering what we mean by scope creep. Or simply put, it occurs when the scope deliverables or features on a project expand from what was originally set, without being accounted for in additional time or budget. Scope creep can affect any fixed project. It's a very common thing, as it can happen both intentionally and unintentionally, stemming from any number of people involved in the project. But back to negotiation. The key to successful negotiation is to win without burning any bridges. The project manager can't simply walk away if the terms aren't right. They have to find the middle ground. The negotiation skills require an investment in time to understand the relationships and stakeholders' interests, so it's clear what's needed to move the projects forward. Failure to do this risks ignoring critical relationships, which will unfortunately lead to failure. Discussions about budgets, resource allocation, and timelines can become adversarial and counterproductive if not handled tactfully. Successful project managers know how to find compromises where possible, and also how to hold a firm line without damaging their workplace relationships. Subject matter expertise is always an area to grow, because the world of business is moving so fast. A good project manager needs to know enough to first come up with a plan, and then to execute and manage it properly, and so lead the team into success. Effective project managers need to know enough about the work that their teams execute. They need to know the platforms and systems their teams use, and the possibilities and limitations of those, so that they can have intelligent and informed conversations with the team, with clients, with stakeholders and suppliers. Knowing technically what's feasible and what's not, and even more importantly, how much work might be involved in a type of project, is invaluable. Even if the project manager's job, their own job, is not technical. It means that estimates as to the length of time and cost of a project can be arrived at quickly. It's also useful in client-facing situations as it gives the confidence to explain where a project is really at, rather than having to give vague answers about the project being in development. It's worth trying to develop subject matter expertise across the full project life cycle. That means understanding how things work in strategy, in service design, in product design, creative concepting, content development, quality assurance, content delivery, to name just a few. Critical to gain sound knowledge is putting in the time to learn. Not only does it give a better grasp of the project's lead, it helps project managers to better understand and interact with their teams, with the clients and the stakeholders, and the functional leaders within an organisation. The result is more likely to be successful project delivery every time. Creating realistic project plans, budgets, estimating time and effort, etc. are all the things that a good project manager must do. But keeping the work organised and the teams informed and happy is critical to success. And the skills discussed here are all those skills that are needed to achieve this. Let's take a look now at that scheduling, that ability to plan that a project manager needs to have, and what's available to help them. We're going to look at some of the tools of the trade. So as we're aware, project management is a challenging task with many complex responsibilities, and most project data is either about time or money. To track the overall schedule, projects, as we know, are broken down into component parts whose start and finish times are measured against the plan. Fortunately, there are many tools available to assist with the accomplishment of the task and executing the responsibilities. Most of these are available online. Project managers should choose a project management tool that suits their style. No one tool addresses all project management needs. The Critical Path Programme, the Programme Evaluation Review Technique, PERT, and Gantt charts are the most commonly used project management tools. And these can be produced these projects tools can be produced manually or with commercially available project management software. Now, the Critical Path method is a planning and control tool used for defining and controlling the tasks necessary to complete a project. And Critical Path method charts and PERT charts are often used interchangeably. The only difference is how the task times are computed. Now, both charts display the total project with all the scheduled tasks shown in sequence, and the displayed tasks also show which ones are in parallel, that is, those that can be performed at the same time, and which ones are sequential. A graphic representation called a project network or a CPM diagram is used to portray the interrelationships of the elements of the project and show the order in which the activities must be performed. I'm going to talk now about the Critical Path planning method, but I have to say that this is can be quite a complex tool, and you might be better getting some more information by going on to YouTube and looking at what's one of the many video explanations of this particular project management tool. But I'll try and give you an overview. So the Critical Path planning method involves the following steps. First of all, we have to identify the specific activities and milestones, the main deliverables for a project, and then break down the high-level activities into smaller chunks of work, as you can see here. We have to determine the proper sequence of activities. Now, this step can be combined with the previous one, since the activity sequence is evident for some tasks. Some activities will depend on the completion of others. So listing the immediate predecessors of each activity will help identify the correct order. We need to construct a network diagram. Once the activities and their dependencies have been identified, the critical path analysis chart, known as the network diagram, can be drawn, showing the sequence of the successive and parallel activities, as shown here on the left. But it can also be drawn using arrowed lines that represent the activities and circles or bubbles that represent the milestones, as shown here on the right. The next step is to estimate the time required for each activity. This is where it gets just a little bit complicated. Weeks are a commonly used unit of time for activity completion, particularly in larger projects, but any consistent use of time can be used. And this time estimation is based on past experience or knowledge. If there's some discomfort about using best guess estimates, you can, of course, use a 3-point estimation method, which is designed to put more weight on the most realistic time frame. Now, in this estimation method, it's presented in formulas in order to calculate the time duration more accurately. So for each activity, the model uses 3 time estimates. The optimistic time, the shortest time in which an activity can be completed. The most likely time, completion time having the highest probability. And of course, pessimistic time, the longest time that an activity might take. Once these values have been identified, they can be used using 2 different formulas. The first puts more weight on the most likely value, and the second represents the more standard time. So, the estimated time for each activity can be calculated using the following weighted average to give us the most likely time. E, the estimate, is the optimistic time plus 4 times the most likely time added to the pessimistic time and divided by 6. The second way of using these values is known as triangular distribution, and the main difference is that the method doesn't put more weight on the most likely value. And the formula is shown where E stands for estimate and the 3 represents the standard method. We then need to identify the critical path. This determines, it's arrived at by adding the times for the activities in each sequence and identifying the longest path in the project, the longest sequence of activities on the path. You need to look for the longest path in terms of duration, not the path with the most boxes. The critical path determines the total calendar time required for the project. The amount of time that a non-critical path activity can be delayed without delaying the project itself is referred to as slack time. If the critical path isn't immediately obvious, it might be helpful to determine the following 4 times for each activity. The earliest start time, the earliest finish time, the latest start time, and the latest finish time. The earliest start and finish time of each activity are arrived at by working forward through the network and deciding the earliest time at which an activity can start and finish, considering its predecessor activities. The latest start and finish times are those times that an activity can start and finish without delaying the project. And the latest start time and the latest finish time are found by working backwards through the network. The difference in the latest and earliest finish of each activity is that activity's slack. The critical path, then, is the path through the network in which none of the activities have slack, shown here with that red line. Of course, as we go along, we need to update the critical path analysis chart as the project progresses, because we then can replace the estimated times with the actual times. In cases where there are delays, additional resources might be needed to stay on schedule, and the chart can be modified to reflect that new situation. Now, earlier I spoke about PERT, the Program Evaluation and Review Technique, which is a variation on the critical path method, but it takes a much more sceptical view of the activity time estimates. It was developed by the Navy in the late 1950s to help produce missiles faster. And of course, as I've stated before, critical path method and PERT are often used in the same context or scenarios. And although they're similar, it's important to us to understand each concept and their differences. A PERT chart, or activity on arrow diagram, shown here on the right, is a visual representation of the project schedule. It shows the sequence of tasks and which can be completed at the same time. A PERT chart is made with a lot of the same information that's used in the critical path method. For example, the earliest and latest start dates, and the earliest and latest finish dates, and the slack. The biggest difference is in time estimation. In the critical path method, time variance is not accounted for. Best guess estimates are used for completion time, and those times might change. With PERT, more weight is placed on the most realistic completion time. PERT can be used in the critical path method when the stage is to estimate the activity completion times. And the purpose of using PERT is to bias the time estimates towards the most likely scenario and move away from unrealistic short time frames. To use PERT, you must estimate the shortest possible time for each activity, the most likely length of time, and the longest time it might take, if the activity lasts longer than expected. With that information, you can use this formula in order to estimate the completion times, as at step 4 in the critical path method. So you take the shortest time plus 4 times the most likely time plus the longest time and divide it by 6. And that way we get the expected activity completion time. What are the benefits then of using critical path method or PERT, or a PERT chart? Well, as you can see from this representation, all the information is there. The detail's not there. The information that you need is there. But one of the biggest benefits of the critical path method is in identifying the crucial tasks that have to be closely managed, and if missed, will impact on the project's completion date. It provides visibility into the project status, allowing people to see if the project is on track. The benefits to using these two methods, critical path method or PERT, include improved planning and scheduling of activities, improved forecasting of the resource requirements so that they're there at the right time in the right place to be used by the right people, the identification of repetitive planning patterns which can be followed in other projects, thus simplifying the planning process, the ability to see and reschedule activities to reflect inter-project dependencies and resource limitations following known priority rules. And it also provides expected project completion time, the probability of completion before a specified date, and the activities that have slack time that can then lend resources to critical path activities. And of course, the activity start and end dates. I mentioned that critical path method and PERT and Gantt are the most common, it's likely that you've come across Gantt before. Let's have a look again. Gantt charts are used to show calendar time task assignments in days, weeks, or months. The tool uses graphic representations to show start, elapsed, and completion times of each task within a project. They're ideal for tracking progress. The number of days actually required to complete a task that reached a milestone can be compared with the planned or the estimated number. The actual work days, from the actual start to the actual finish, are plotted below the scheduled days. This information helps target potential timeline slippage or failure points. And these charts serve as a valuable budgeting tool and show monies allocated versus money spent. To draw up a Gantt chart, you have to first of all list all the activities in the plan. For each task, you show the earliest start date, the estimated length of time it will take, and whether it's parallel or sequential. If tasks are sequential, show which stages they depend on. Head up some graph paper with the days or weeks through to completion. And then plot the tasks onto graph paper. Show each task starting on the earliest possible date and draw it as a bar, with the length of the bar being the length of the task. Above the task bars, mark the time taken to complete them. Schedule the activities in such a way that sequential actions are carried out in the required sequence. Ensure that dependent activities don't start until the activities they depend on have been completed, and where possible, schedule parallel tasks so that they don't interfere with the sequential actions on the critical path. While you're scheduling, ensure that you make best use of the resources you have available. Don't overcommit them. And allow some slack time in the schedule for hold-ups, overruns, or failures. And finally, in the final version of your Gantt chart, you can combine your draft analysis with your scheduling and the analysis of resources. And this chart will show when you anticipate that the job should start and finish. The benefits of using a Gantt chart include it gives an easy to understand visual display of a task or activity. It makes it easy to develop what-if scenarios. It enables better project control by promoting clearer communication, and it becomes a tool for negotiations. It shows the actual progress against the planned schedule, and it can report results at appropriate levels. And it allows comparison of multiple projects to determine the risk or resource allocation. And it rewards the project manager with more visibility and control over the project. So, why then do we use project management? Well, the investment in effective project management will have a number of benefits, such as providing a greater likelihood of achieving that desired result, ensuring efficient and best value use of resources, and satisfying the different needs of the project stakeholders. Employing project management technologies minimizes the disruption of routine business activities. In many cases, by placing under a single command all of the skills, technologies, and resources needed to bring the project to its successful conclusion. But we have to have some considerations in terms of using project management. And that is, the people skills required depend on each specific project and the resources available at the time. As I said before, the greater the amount of adjustments a parent organisation must make to fulfil project objectives, the greater chance exists for project failure. And as we've heard, the form of project management will be unique for every project endeavour and will most undoubtedly change throughout the project. What about the future? Well, project management tools have evolved from simple spreadsheet products to sophisticated web-based information portals. These project management portals are becoming much more common as the collaboration capabilities of project management tools improve. The obvious trend in project management software, as with almost everything to do with information technology, is a move towards web-based systems. Most project management tools can be accessed via browsers, and those that do not currently have this capability are fast moving in that direction. Another trend is the move towards hosted project management applications. In these, users can outsource project management to product service providers who manage a customer's project and who provide real-time alerts of issues and inefficiencies and problems, and even recommend solutions. Project management tools are gradually becoming integrated project information portals with capabilities far beyond simple project tracking and reporting. As the sophistication of these products continues to grow, however, so too does their complexity. It's important that project management software is actually relatively simple and easy to use. Project management tools should not become the focus of a project manager's life or add time to project activities. Let's be honest, if a project manager has to spend too much time learning a product's features, their ability to actively manage the project process diminishes, totally defeating the purpose of the tool. Thank you for listening.